How y'all doing? Well, for this video, I'm going to talk about the movie Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets, which I just watched a couple of nights ago. I'm going to get my thoughts on that, and after watching several other critics talk about this movie, I want to see if I can... I'll probably address the same thing, and I'll probably discuss this in angles where they were confused by the movie, where I can see what they were trying to do with the movie, and and so forth. That doesn't mean that that they misunderstood it, because they were judging it from the movie itself. So before we begin, I made a video some time back about the Valerian The Complete Collection Volume 1. This is the first 3 story arcs. I gave my opinion in one of my previous videos. I also went ahead and got this one, Ambassador of the Shadows. This is the Valerian and Laureline story that was adapted into the movie that you may have already seen. Okay. Here's the thing. This movie was extended from this one from a, let's see, 48-page story. So, trying to take that, taking a story by itself and turn a movie just won't work. It would be too short. So you have to add in certain things. And I can see what they were trying to do. He wanted to take this one, which shows a good example. Luc Besson, the director. It's a good example of Valerian and Laureline, of the universe that they have, by showing a setting that has all these weird and wonderful things about it. And of course, the problem is that the story arc is more Laureline focused than Valerian. I'll get to that in a second. But for the record, I'm going to probably get into some spoilers in this rant. So I'll probably spoil the movie a bit and spoil the the comic itself, because I want to compare them, side by side. Now, a lot of the critics of the film, if I had to sum up, they're all basically saying the same thing. Visually, it is gorgeous, although, again, there's some CG here and there that didn't work for them. It's pretty subjective at this point. Hell, you don't see people complain about stop-motion animation of the past, saying that it looks too jerky compared to live action. Of course not. I never think about such things. Is either a good effect or it isn't, regardless if it's practical or CG, but that's another discussion entirely. So, visually, it is gorgeous, and it is, I will admit. But but when it comes to, after all these years of CGI stuff, we see a lot of good, we see a lot of bad. Why do we even comment about how, the CG is top notch and Avatar was the greatest thing in CG? It's like, no, that was just kind of the next step on how much they were willing to put money in and put this in. If you have delve with science fiction and fantasy to any extent, through novels, through art especially, through video games, through any length of time, it shouldn't be shocking that something like this is going to happen, to the scale of Valerian. It's just the first time maybe a lot of people see it on a big screen. If you're not big on sci-fi, this is probably the biggest thing ever. But again, visually it is gorgeous, no doubt. That's what a lot of critics are saying that. Okay, the actor playing Valerian, the main character, was not the best thing, as far as his character-wise. His voice, some critics are saying that he sounds like Keanu Reeves. I don't know. I have to go back to Bill and Ted Adventure. He sounds more like a very sounds more closer to Christian Bale's Batman voice to me, but that's just me. But they put, as far as acting ability, to put him on the lowest. Cara Delevingne, they put rank above him. She's better. But they seem to want to put Rihanna as the best thing, whether she was necessary in the movie or not. She was the best part. Okay, and I do sort of agree where they're going with this. But there's a lot. But then they talk about, okay, visually stunning. Then the actors. The 3 best actors, from, well, not the 3 best, but from order on who was better, who was best, who was worse, who was best. And then there's a story, and they said that the story was, why, this is full of plot holes. Okay, there's some of these I do understand, because in some scenes they were taken when, and they could have blasted them with their gun, but then, unless they didn't bring it out. I can understand. Here's the thing. I understand exactly what they're doing. By adapting this one, Ambassador of the Shadows, they're trying to put in a lot of the stuff from this into the movie. Not always successful. Now, again, I'm going to get into spoilers here, but the main basic plot is the same, but the origin of Alpha, which is the giant city, the city of 1,000 planets, in the comic, it was not. In the movie, it was based, started from Earth space stations, and then it expanded, and then aliens found it and they expanded even further, and then they, got so big they had to push out of Earth's orbit. This is all in the beginning. Fine. Many of you have already seen it, and I said spoilers, so yeah. In the book, this is all put together by aliens over time. So, it's just that's instead of calling it Alpha, it's Point Central. It's completely alien from its origin. And of course, you see here it is. And yeah, look, well, this one you've seen in the movie and so forth. And here's how I would describe what they're doing with. You take this volume, adapt it to a movie, but you put in a lot of the same events into the movie, but do not tell the exact same story. You start off from the beginning, but it's by starting off the same and through the same series of events, it went off the way of the comic. You do the same thing in the movie and you kind of veer it off in another direction. Because in the comic there, it's great for a comic, but it's not going to do well as far as the movie. People think that the story itself was kind of, but in this one it was a case of it just kind of finished off fairly quickly. Still enjoyable, but fairly quickly. I've had worse, trust me. Look up DC's Warlord from a few years back. So, it starts out the same. They are going to serve as escorts to this ambassador, and he gets kidnapped. And in the comic, Valerian chases after the kidnappers and hatches onto the ship and ends up being captured himself. So, most of the story is Laureline, his partner, trying to find him throughout Point Central. So this is where she goes through the many intersections. She's accompanied by this protocol ambassador, and she's strong and confident in everything, and that's where you meet the same aliens. For instance, these two guys you see in the movie, they come, they show up into this, and the thing is, everywhere she goes to try and find another form of help to find Valerian, she has to pay. This is not the prime, Babylon 5 or main area. This is it's kind of corrupted. It went against its own ways long ago. But the little creature she ends up with in the movie, it's a main creature that belongs to the alien race, the Pearl. In this case, this was a monetary means for the ambassador. It can take anything you feed it and multiply that. So you feed it diamonds, it makes lots of diamonds. And the problem is, the more it does it, the more it wears it out. So she has to be very careful with it. But she has to use this as a means to bribing or paying for the information he needs to find Valerian and to end up and find out what's happening to him. And while there are some scenes in this book that never made it through, she does come across the alien race that in the movie sort of kidnaps her, but it's a different set of events in the comic as well. Yeah, she's the one that gets the alien, this alien, being to cover her and shapeshift her into this, to hide out, to camouflage into this alien species section. So the character Rihanna plays doesn't exist. In fact, Laureline's the one that comes to the little pleasure house and tries to find the being that will help her out. Now, one of the critics was mentioning about the scene where they had to go underwater. They had to get this jellyfish because jellyfish, and this jellyfish is attached to this large creature, and it attacks them when they take it off. It actually does explain. It doesn't explain well in the movie. You see, what is the Grabos? The Grabos are a unique form of psychic entity, blind for all we know, perhaps completely dumb. It's their pilot Zors. Zors are the jellyfish that they're after. A sort of pedunculated jellyfish that keep them informed of everything around them when in contact with any life form. They function by telepathy. If you're quick, you can grab the Zor and know what's happening anywhere there are Grabos. you have to be swift. Zeros only live for a few seconds out of water. So in the movie, she takes it, and they had to time her for 1 minute. So but it explains that because when she puts the jellyfish on, she can get the visions of what happens to Valerian, and then not too long after that, they resolve and what have you. So again, it's a good comic, especially for an old classic, but it doesn't do well translating directly into screen, especially when it's the first movie of Valerian and Laureline. So you can't just focus on Laureline. You want to focus on both. So they had to take this volume, and as I said, they took from the premise and where it went through to its own conclusion, they took the same thing and through the series of events went to another conclusion, modifications. If you look at the genres, any genre, any major series, what have you, this is not uncommon in adaptations. I'll give you an example right here, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli. Great film. However, if you can by any chance pick up this wonderful 2-volume set of the manga by the same guy who did the movie, Hayao Miyazaki. And what you get, especially in the first volume, the starting premise and the series of events with some differences. And in the manga, it goes its own direction. In fact, it goes beyond because the movie, it starts on the same thing, and it gives a lot of same vision. It had to come to a different conclusion because it's much shorter. And it would have been cool if they'd done this as a well done quality television series to match this and maybe go beyond. So again, this is one example of things you'll find all the time. So I'm not really complaining about that, but it's not well executed. Now here's the part I've gotten, that got to me, and it got to a lot of people, because it has to do with the interactions between the main characters themselves of Valerian and Laureline. Now, as I read this series, and I've only read the first volume here, was the first 3 story arcs, and this one of the Ambassador of the Shadows. They're not bickering at each other. There's no, tension between them. These two people, I mean, first of all, this movie cannot go the way the comic did. The comic, when it first started off, first couple story arcs, not only had a cartoonish look, it dealt with time travel to where Valerian finds Laureline in medieval France. And the storyline of that was Valerian had to go track this mad scientist who discovered magic. Yes, magic. Goes back into medieval France, finds out how to work it. It turns people into other animals or magical creatures, including Laureline into a unicorn. And because unicorns had the ability to read minds, she was able to read Valerian's minds and find out who he is and how he fits into all this. So that's how Laureline joins in with Valerian. And in one scene, like in one panel, let me see if I can find it. How does a girl in medieval France somehow quickly adapts into into the current futuristic society? Well, in one panel it kind of shows it. And let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah, right here it is. She just instantly pumps her through the knowledge of giving her all the information she needs to adapt to the world, and she's off with him. If you think that's silly, bear in mind, it's 1967. The parallel I imagine is, imagine you and your friend were creating this project involving, that has to be a vehicle. It's a good idea, you start it, and you got it running, but it's not perfect, so you tune it up a little bit, you refine it, and it works better, and it stands out. That's how Valerian and Laureline are first couple story arcs until the third, The Empire of 1,000 Planets, which, despite the name, has nothing to do with the movie. Just where they derived the name from. Okay, so back to the two characters, Valerian and Laureline. As the comics go, they are two people who really love and respect each other. They have their two different personalities, but they are not bickering and arguing. They go on these adventures. You tend to like them both. In the movie, Valerian's kind of a douchebag. He's kind of a jerk. I guess they're trying to adapt it to what they expect moviegoers are to expect. And I don't. And a lot of the critics are like, these two are just bickering and arguing with each other. It doesn't quite work here. And I think if they just made it to where these two people, despite their different whatever differences they have, Valerian's, he's an agent, and he could be cocky, but you give him a little bit of charisma about him. And you have Laureline, this fun, this beautiful, intelligent woman. They complement each other, and despite all the troubles they can have, they can solve these issues here. And they do it because they have a job to do, and they both like each other. They help each other out. If they did that, it would have been people would complain about it much. I don't think David Hahn did a good job playing Valerian. It could have been better. I think Cara Delevingne, it did okay. Does anybody know why they didn't dye her hair red? Not to be nitpicky on it. I enjoyed her. Part of it is like, it's simple. Give her the red hair that Laureline's known for. It's not so big deal. Sophie Turner for Game of Thrones, she had red hair, but she turned it blonde. But she'd stick back to red. It's easily done, or even temporary ones. It's a minor thing. And so, I think I just watched a Doug and Rob Walker's review of the movie, where there's just those two sitting down talking about it. And I think his brother Rob Walker is saying, it's like Legend of Zelda cartoon. Between the Legend of Zelda came from had a 1990s cartoon, which I have, and one of the things about it is that the Link and Zelda are kind of these bickering odds. I'll give you another one. This one you have to go back. You can find them on YouTube. I think there was two television shows. One was Heart to Heart, which I think was sort of these two couples who that don't hate each other. There's no tension, but they just get the job done. They do this with sort of joy in each other and the job. And then there's the famous 1980s Moonlighting with Bruce Willis and Sybil Denning? No. Sybil Shepherd. But in this one, this was a huge hit at the time, and basically this is that these two completely opposite people have this bicker and argue all the time, but there's this tension between each other. The comics, it was Heart to Heart. In the movie, they tried to turn it into Moonlighting. So, those who grew up in the 80s know what I'm talking about here. Correct me if I'm wrong on the other show. That's not Moonlighting. So, I was going there at least having a good time, and I do admit some degree of disappointment. And you can definitely tell from the other reviewers, they're saying, okay, whether they like it or hate it, there's a lot of problems in this movie. There are some people that say that this is bad, but in sort of enjoyable way. A lot of people are aiming towards, I guess basically what they're saying is, it's not as good as Fifth Element. It's below that, but it's better than Jupiter Ascending, which is not a Luc Besson film. So, but it's a similar space opera action film. Okay. Is there a hope for the movie? I would say yes. In the same way as I gave the parallel of the first couple of story arcs here, where it's a bumpy start, they just got it together, and they just got it running. A lot of people are impressed for many things about it, but they're also disappointed by a lot of things about it. Listen to them carefully, refine it, and if you make another sequel or two, you get it right. So again, if you're a young kid, you probably wouldn't mind any of this. It's all, because I personally believe that if you're a person below the age of 10 and whatever, everything you like tends to reflect what we are handed to and how low standards we have. Let me see if I can point this another way. You're less than 10 years old, you don't have much standards in life. So you tend to like you tend to like a lot of things that as you grow up is like, wow, I used to watch this. I grew up in the 80s, trust me. There's a lot of good stuff I like, but there's a lot of stuff which I do love. And I was like, wow. I understood what my parents meant when they thought this was stupid. But it's part of where we grow up. If you're a kid, you could probably watch this and have a good time. You don't notice all the flaws of the movie and all that. You're just looking at all the wonderful sceneries, alien races, the characters, and just have a good time. That's what I was hoping for, not the next greatest thing since when Star Wars A New Hope came out. No. You're never going to get that. I think we in America particularly have been so saturated with all of these type of films. There is no such thing as the next best thing. Just another well-accomplished story that we all enjoy. And maybe that's the standard we need to get into. We like something for different, we'll like something because of the different reasons, behind this one. I mean, a lot of people like The Fifth Element, but Fifth Element is one of those that did not do well in the box office, but I've been hearing everybody to watch it. And also, a lot of us aren't familiar with Valerian and Laureline. It's a huge hit in France and throughout Europe, but particularly in France, and it's been influential. But and some people have shown where that influence has affected our science fiction culture. But here's the thing: we did not have Valerian and Laureline on our newsstands or most of comic books unless you special order it. We had Star Trek and Star Wars and all the television shows throughout the decades, and you can probably find where Valerian and Laureline was influenced, but we were not exposed to the Valerian and Laureline, the original source. So now we are in this new movie coming out that helped started this in France, but it's not well executed. Same goes for John Carter of Mars. Back in 2012, Disney produced that movie and didn't do so well, despite the fact that it was 100 years old already and influenced a lot of the genre through books, artwork, comics, what have you. But the movie came out and it was a bad execution, and we're not going to see any more of that. Maybe a reboot further on, but doubt that. It's going to take some very heavy convincing. So I think I've had my thoughts on the Valerian and Laureline. It's okay, not perfect. I was expecting to have a little bit more of a fun time, but where a lot of people are saying where it works, it really works. But when it's bad, depending on where you think it's bad, you notice it. It's hard to watch. So to some people, it's some of the CGI. A lot of it's great. The other is, oh man, I just why didn't it go practical special effects? I mean, they did that. My argument is it is not. Everyone's saying, oh, they're using too much CGI in movies. It's like, me, it is not the tool where it's practical or CGI. It is the execution. And if you look at movies throughout the past with CGI and it's practical, we have seen good and bad of each. Trust me. So, there you go. Give it a go. If you don't want to pay full price, find matinee, dollar theater, wait for video. $200 million it took to make this movie. You can see where it is in special effects. But if we can at least chip in enough to where we like it just enough to where they can correct it in sequels to justify making sequels and correct that one, we could probably have more enjoyable time. Hey, look, Star Trek, the motion picture, same thing, visually stunning, bad, slow moving, but Wrath of Khan, and all the other sequels we enjoy, mostly even numbers, but it built on from there. It could be possible with Laureline. Valerian and Laureline, with the two. So, also another nitpick complaint is they just called it Valerian, the City of 1,000 Planets. So they gave the name to the one character who, it sounds like you gotta give focus to him, but if you watch the movie, both him and Laureline have equal time. So they could have called it Valerian and Laureline. Maybe they'll do it as sequels if we give it reason to give it sequels. So yeah, go ahead and watch it, like it or hate it. If it's not your thing, well, don't bother. It's your choice. So thank you all for watching. You have a nice day.